is a familiar sight. Here we go. Night 7, no challenges enabled, and I turned off cheats anyway. You can actually access this with cheats now, so you can do fast nights and get here in half the time. There's nothing that is deterred by it. I mean, you can have the cheats on or off. I mean, it's still going to do the same thing. Absolutely nothing. Even if you have 10 stars, it does absolutely nothing. Unlock 2 plays when you rattle the locks. It's not actually an unlock function, it's just the sound effect. That message fades in 15 seconds in, slow alpha fade, and then about 20 seconds in, the frame is gone. And if you notice that background sound that played in the Lockbox frame, it doesn't just happen in the Lockbox frame. It happens here too, the extra menu. It's deep ambience with scary alien noises, or deep ambience with SC because the file store probably truncated it on SoundDog's side. So even though I have all these stars and everything is complete, from my side, everything from the series feels really incomplete. And I think, and it's not the Lockbox that drives me the most insane about this, it's just the amount of open bugs and issues that exist in the series through the whole series, 1 through 4. I mean, give me 2 minutes. Let me name a bunch. Ready, set, go. I mean, 1 and 2, the ITS versus the ITS issues grammatically in 1 and 2, and the notices and the news articles, the graphical clipping through the whole series with Withered Bonnie's bow tie clipping through the jaw, or Fred Bear's hat clipping through the ceiling, Foxy non-reset in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. You have to F2 to actually get a standardized run at something. Foxy level 0, he still appears in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. He has that 21 plus 5 logic thing that he has about a 17.5% chance of moving on any given iteration, even at level 0. He also appears on Ladies' Night. Okay, so what is he doing? Checking on Mangle? Mangle appears on Ladies' Night. So what else? Toy Bonnie having a 1 in 3 chance of actually attacking you. It's a gameplay balancing issue where he's supposed to attack, but it's a 1 in 3 chance of whether he'll actually jump up and attack you. And that can kill your whole meter, literally. And there's a chance that Bonnie will never jump based on that. The 2 in 3 chance every time of him not jumping if someone else is near to attack you. Paper Pals will blip out right when Toy Bonnie comes across and then come back in. That's a graphical issue. Toy Bonnie can kill you randomly even if your mask is on and another animatronic is there just fading out. The slow fade issue that kills your meter like crazy as well in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 just randomly. The quick Bonnie glitch that I try to use for my own benefit on that as well. Sometimes you can get rid of Bonnie really quick by just like circling really fast. But then you get things on 3 where Springtrap runs across your screen and doesn't kill you or doesn't get Q to attack, but he warps to cam 5 or cam 2 or cam 1. You also have the limits checks throughout the whole series where you can play night 999, or the negative equivalent on the other side of 0 in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, and the mouse glitch that you can do to access that. Then you have the loading issues in Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Even at 1024 by 768 and it being 15 PNG frames, it still brings an i7 to a halt sometimes, overheats graphics cards, everything. And it's probably a performance issue. Also 1024 by 768. In the future, Five Nights at Freddy's 3, why is everything in 4 by 3? 1024 by 768, I mean, were we nuked or something? Is that the reason why we went away from advanced resolutions? We'll probably have 10 years from now something like 32K, but here we have 1024 by 768 artifact as our main thing. The Nightmare kill you anyway bug, where Nightmare, you close the door on him instantly and then he runs away. You hear the scurrying sound and then a second later you're dead. Or Bonnie and Chica not being at the doors and still killing you. You can view that on the mini-map. That's also a bug. Or the BB audio latency thing where he says hello and there's enough an audio gap up front that you get absolutely no audio cue when he does that. If he laughs or if he says hi, easy peasy, but he doesn't always do that. Or the lipstick bug with Mangle that I just pointed out. It's just, there's so many little things that could have been polished and changed so that they didn't really give people a problem. This could have been a standardized thing. And I think just like what could have been in terms of the polish of the series. And a lot of these are just really easy, but I'm sure that they'll probably never get fixed. I mean, the Lockbox that Scott Post implied that it probably will never be open. And it seems to be a troll move, but even so, it makes me wonder the carelessness in the deployment. I mean, you still can't window this thing. or properly. You don't have a minimize, so you have to kill the app if you want to get out of it. Um, but even so, it makes me wonder about the plot as well, because you have a game, and I think it's a great thing that it happened to Scott. I think God blessed him in a way. He was faithful to the Lord throughout his whole life, and though he went through some really hard times, and who knows what beyond the whole like Dollar General story, but the whole thing, he gave honor to the Lord. He did the Pilgrim's Progress game. He did tons of animations. He did David and Goliath. He did Christmas story stuff, Moses, everything, and just his stuff with Hope Animation's great. You should go check that out. But he's really given honor to the Lord, and I think it's funny that It so happened that he got blessed by this, but he's also very generous, and he models biblical generosity very well, and that he was given much and he gave back much, and that's really cool. That's the way it should be. And you reap bountifully if you sow bountifully, and that's what he's experiencing right now. But you have a game that raised $0 on Kickstarter initially with Freddy Bear, and then the game comes out with Freddy, and it's a solid encapsulated game. It's this mysterious single story. But the right people picked it up. Markiplier played it, PewDiePie played it, Jack played it. All these celebrities picked it up. I know it's a corny term, but all these celebrities picked it up, and it became a viral hit. And he's obviously made his millions, and there's a Warner Brothers movie coming out. Five Nights at Freddy's World is going to come out. I'm sure that's going to be a fun game. That's more of his style, the RPG as well as the like family-friendly, kid-friendly type thing. But here with this gruesome yet tongue-in-cheek series, Five Nights at Freddy's 4, you don't expect the first one to be a success, and so you write the plot, but that's it. But then when it became a huge hit, of course, people wanted more. And so you come out with Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which I thought was really the masterpiece in the series in terms of the gameplay. I mean, it was a fresher look, it looked cleaner, it had more going on, and until you got up to the really after night 4, it became really tedious with the cameras because you couldn't explore. And even though you had everything on level 0, in your custom night, Foxy would still pop up and still could kill you even if you're just trying to look at the scenery. That would have been really cool to have, and that's what it really should be, because Foxy's at 0. But Cam 11 Simulator after all that. But anyway, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 came out, and the plot was muddied by all these things. And initially, Five Nights at Freddy's 1, you have this like spooky Chuck E. Cheese knockoff, and kind of a parody approach to that. But the Jack in the Box jump scares happen all over the place, and it was fun, and it was fun to watch people's reactions of it. It's kind of a reaction watching game to a lot of people, and I think over half the people who are actually into the game don't have the game, and so people know about Five Nights at Freddy's. If you ask anyone under 30 what Five Nights at Freddy's is, I'd be surprised if more than like 5% don't know what Five Nights at Freddy's is. But the plot was muddied when 2 came out, and you get this whole Purple Man thing, and these multiple child murders at previous locations and everything. And the whole thing was a retcon of the first one, the retroactive continuity, the alterations on that. And so you look back at Five Nights at Freddy's 1, and the only way to make that reconciled would be to edit that such that Phone Guy would mention some things from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, or like, why did these animatronics disappear now? Why is BB Balloon Boy not mentioned in Five Nights at Freddy's 1? Why are there only 4 key animatronics and maybe 5 if you include Golden Freddy? But Five Nights at Freddy's 2, Golden Freddy also has an endoskeleton. You can look at his legs. That's the thing. So anyway, why do these animatronics disappear? Why are there more than the 5 murders here? And if it's the first time through and it's treated as such a crazy thing, like, oh, there's all these children's child murders and everything, and then 2 comes out, but it's a prequel, and yet you had tons of things in the past that were being recounted as, oh, well, this happened also, all these child murders. You think, why in the world would you ever open up some other branch of Five Nights at Freddy's? Or Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, rather. Or sister locations, or anything. I mean, it should have been known. Or like, the report comes out and saying, oh, just like the previous location, there were 5 more murders on this, and it's like, okay. But then 3 comes out and you get Springtrap, and where was Springtrap in 1 or 2 or anything? And then he pops out in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, and then you get the ending. Which ending would you get? Would you get the good ending or the bad ending? Which one is canon? Which one was not? What do you do with that? Can we change the future by our actions? Well, I guess that's debatable, but I guess we'd have to do it in 1024 by 768, even in the future. But man, then 4 comes out, and we're like, man, well, this is going to be good, and we're going to have all these blanks filled in. And what do we get? We got a big question mark, and it just feels like a big troll, where we get this story of this kid who just is absolutely bullied like crazy for no real reason, just except for being young and a younger brother, and then he gets his head chomped. I mean, and then he dies. Night 6, he dies. So you hear that flat line, and he's dead. And that's the end of the story. I mean, it's the feel-good story of the year, right? But you get this big question mark, like, when did this happen? Why did this happen? Was this actually the bite that was done in 1? And if so, then why were these other things allowed? Where did where did all these, like, where did Spring Bonnie go and that type of thing? But I mean, if there's sister locations, there had to be more than one instance of Spring Bonnie. So anything in the specifics weren't fleshed out, and I think a lot of people put stock into Scott because they like Scott. I mean, he made this novel game and this novel game series, and he's generous, he's nice, and in most cases, I think the only time he's ever replied to me is when he was irritated about the keychain thing, the keychain comment. I was like, you might want to be careful with this, and I still think he should put out legit, realistic action figures because he'd make a killing around Christmas season. But maybe next time. But even so, people liked Scott. People invested themselves into the series. People made tons of fan games. It was the cool thing to do. I thought it was a little played out, so I didn't do it. But at the same time, tons of people did, and a lot of people made really cool games. And they were so invested in it, and they had put some fill in the blank, like they'd filled the gaps in their own brain. And then when something else comes out, like Five Nights at Freddy's 4, they're like, what? So a lot of this with the Occam's razor type of theory, things change, and the things that you planned out in production at the start are not what they finish out to be. I mean, even Scott said in the Geeks Under Grace interview that he can't explain Golden Freddy, and some things happen in development that you just can't explain. He didn't have this whole plot planned out, and even in 4, it's like, well, okay, is this the origin story of Golden Freddy? Maybe, maybe not, but it's not for sure, because there aren't enough details given. Nothing is like, oh, this is this. It's, oh, well, this might be this if you check the colors, or the background, maybe Easter eggs that were maybe put in the game. But then you have us reading into things such as that BB10 trailer, like, oh man, 10, maybe there are 10 Five Nights at Freddy's, or maybe there are 10 kids killed. And then Scott saying, oh no, I was just going to do 10 trailers and then count down per day, but I just decided to release it early. Okay, Occam's razor, law of parsimony, lex parsimoniae. Simplest explanation is likely the correct one. This changed during development. Five Nights at Freddy's 1, the Kickstarter, he was Freddy Bear. In the game files, he's Fred Bear. Fred Bear comes later in 4 as a totally different character, but then you have, during the game, Five Nights at Freddy's 1, he's Freddy. Golden Freddy is Yellow Bear in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, but then you move over to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and all the fans called him Golden Freddy. So what is he called in Five Nights at Freddy's 2? Go to the extra, or the custom night section. It says Golden Freddy. So he's morphed the story based on what people's expectations seem to have been from the feedback on the earlier games. And so the things that were put in retroactively have to be existing in the original in order for it to be a realistic and convincing retroactive continuity presentation. So and with the bite of 87, that was a side comment put in there for comic relief. But then when you come to 2, that's the whole thing people were waiting on, like, oh, who caused the bite of 87? And that was what was hot, and he capitalized on that. So I think that was more of a decision based on him seeing, oh, this is hot, let me go with this, let me see what I can do with this. But then things not completely lining up in all areas. I mean, 87 or 83, nobody knows. You have that Fred Bear and Friends 1983 thing. That could have just been a tape made in 1983, a training tape. It looks like a training video for an arcade. My friend, well, I have several friends who manage arcades, but one in particular has one specific for his arcade, and it's pretty much like that. Or you can look online, the Chuck E. Cheese training tapes are very much like that. And they're often dated up front instead of at the end where you have the credit line. So it's probably not a TV show. So it could be a chain of store, Fredbear and Friends. But even so, you have all these things that aren't fleshed out, and we're left to estimate and guesstimate what it's supposed to be. So when it comes to plot, I think you should stop worrying about it. It's pretty much the basics of it. Until there's something certain, you really shouldn't be stressed over. But at the same time, I think people put so much stock into it, and invested so much into even their theories, that they're convinced that their theory is correct on this, and yet there isn't really much to go on. When you get how much information and uh, story is actually presented in all four of the games combined, there's very, very little. And yet everything is just left open and undetermined on so many levels. So um, I guess the thing is, there's just so much noise out there that people have theorized this game so much that we think that things that people say are canon, and yet they just aren't. So, anyway, long story short, and I know I've gone, well, 15 minutes already. Uh, it's been a fun series. I'm glad the success was given to Scott, that God blessed him in that way. I know we honor God, He honors the things that we do, and He blesses us. So it's always good. You know, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean on your not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. And Scott's a good example of that. Instead of working at Dollar General, he's making a movie, and he's very well off. He made, again, I would say arguably the most successful solo indie game of all time to date. So anyway, it's been fun, and this is not the end video, because I'll be playing some more here. But even so, this is perceivably the end of the series. And if this is what we end with, then this is what we end with. And there are a lot of blanks that were never filled in. So, um, yeah, there were fun games, but annoyingly frustrating at times, mostly because of the game-breaking bugs on the high level that just weren't balanced. You know, we actually put in two codes, SC4 and SC6, that were never used, and that would warp you to hour 4 or hour 6, so he could test out Nightmare or the end of the night. But those links were cut, so you can't actually access those in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, which I'm fine with that. I thought CD Plus being in 1 and 2 were bugs, and 2 was disguised, like you had to hover over Freddy's nose and then you press it. He was trying to disguise that, but he should have just broken the link, and that's what he did in 4. I thought that was at least good procedure. But anyway, more to come, I guess, but peace, God bless. And that's kind of what I think of the plot of the game. I don't think that it was planned out initially, and that there's a very basic story, but we're reading way too much into it. And if it's not going to be resolved, then it's just like, oh, well, you know, it's an open-ended ending, which I don't think is satisfying in this case. But even so, I've spent so many hours on this lockbox that, oh my goodness, it's not going to open. So, bummer. All right, peace, God bless. I'll check you next time. The end.